Hi everybody, welcome back. So, yesterday was a little depressing, and I kind of wanted to start off today on a more positive note. We're going to talk about the false self and what that actually means to me. Yesterday I shared a couple stories that were a little bit, inconclusive and probably not all that relevant. I thought they were relevant at the time, and after going back and looking at them, let's just say I was slightly embarrassed, but neither here nor there, so we're going to just get right into it. So today I wanted to talk about how the false self really manifests itself, both at home and at work. So let's start with at home. When we're looking at negative attributes and things that we don't usually like to talk about, we're usually focused on things like narcissism or self-obsession, paranoia, disinterested conversations, and those could be things like anything from passive listening and ignoring the other person's point of view. So I really think that, everyone's perspective is slightly different. And to give a little bit more context to yesterday's story, when I ended up breaking things off with my boyfriend, what ended up happening leading up to that was a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't really talk about. And ultimately, I painted myself as kind of the villain of that story a little bit. But more or less, it was just not a good relationship to be in. And I did end up giving up a lot of myself and what I needed. He wanted me to have certain surgeries to enhance my appearance. He wanted me to be more physically active and have a more muscular physique. He wanted things like that, which is very shallow. Just kind of thinking about it. I laugh about it now, and at the time, I was very disgusted by it. But I don't think you're able to move on from these things without a little bit of levity or being able to make fun of a certain situation. But how that reflected in my false self in the workplace was pretty bad. I would be given a series of tasks, especially being, a gay construction worker. I felt like I had to prove myself and take bigger risks than the average person. And although taking risks in moderation is fine, what I was doing was very unhealthy. I was getting into live equipment, I was playing around with very high voltages, and I didn't really have a care in the world for my safety or the safety of others around me, let alone the structural integrity of the building in case I caused a fire or anything. I didn't have a care for any of that stuff. And when you are dealing with the false self, certain things start to be very apparent. The first thing you start to notice is that the person that is in the false self mode will basically capitulate to everyone and take very unnecessary risk because they feel like they have to please somebody. And so a good example of this would be, hey, Nate, we need you to go over here and we need you to work on this piece of equipment. I know it's live and there is potential for you to get injured, electrocuted, or even killed. Would you mind going and just opening the equipment? I was like, okay, I'll just go open it, take a look. In the electrical trade, it's routine to basically do a live, dead live, check something that's live, check something that's not energized, and then go back and make sure that piece of testing equipment is actually functional. Test the equipment, make sure that you have all your protective equipment on. Now, that is what you should do. What I did was I removed everything and removed what we call a dead front. And a dead front protects the individual from anything that is energized on the inside of this equipment. Now, I wasn't wearing gloves. I wasn't wearing a face shield. Let alone was not wearing long sleeves. I was wearing a short sleeve shirt, and I had a chain necklace on at the time. Not a great way to be introduced to such electrical equipment. But I did my job, opened it up, and I took it a step further. Not only did I get voltage readings, I also went through every single connection. The panel was still on. There's 277 volts in this panel, and I'm making sure every single screw is tight while it's live. That is not the safe way to do that. And my employer didn't specify for me to be safe. They were a great company to work for. Probably my favorite electrical contractor I've ever worked for. So I'm not going to give them too much flack for not being particularly safe, but up to that point, it was the safest environment I had been in, but I was still taking these risks, even though the company didn't encourage it. Now it's raining. You can kind of hear it. Maybe. I don't know. We'll find out. However, to get back into the false self, something that always ends up happening is as you continuously go through the cycles and end and begin with I am, you eventually get to a spot where you either get burned out or someone holds a mirror to your face and asks you if what you're doing is safe, reasonable, or productive. And once someone starts questioning you as a person, maybe not your existence or your beliefs or your values, but the actual way you go about your day-to-day interacting with others and talking to people, that's when things start to get interesting because you start breaking out of that shell. And that's when the true self comes in. And we're going to talk more about the true self tomorrow. But the one thing I will say about the true self that is really freeing is that you're able to move on from challenges in your life so much easier once you embrace who you are and you appreciate that individualistic attitude towards life. Because life is too short. You might as well, just wear the pink shirt. Might as well just go to brunch. Might as well just go and do whatever it is you want to do. Because the more you dwell on what others think, the harder it is for you to be able to move on, especially when it comes to certain emotional things, such as a funeral or a wedding. Why can't I get married? Why didn't I have a better relationship with that person? I could have been better. I could have done this. There is so much blame on yourself when it has nothing to do with you whatsoever. The false self, at the end of the day, is a self-destructive pattern of behavior that leads to misery, depression, and anxiety. If you really want to be free, embrace your true self, be who you're meant to be, and that'll reflect in positivity in the workplace. When you go to work, as mentioned yesterday, you will be happy. People will want to be around you. When you're in an environment that comes back and fights against who you are and what you believe, you inadvertently come back every single day with a negative attitude, and eventually people don't want to be around that. So what are you going to do? You're either going to fix it or you're going to ignore it. Either way, if you fix it, you'll start to find your true self. Ignorance is bliss, and until next time, this has been my coffee corner, and I'll catch you on the next one.